This streamer just finished her stream like it was any other day, but 30 minutes later, her top donator ended her life. This is just one of those awfully tragic stories, which unfortunately aren't even anomalies anymore, as this pretty recently happened in Japan as well. But a Korean live streamer with over 300,000 followers went live for one last time. 30 minutes later, she was gone. And the person responsible wasn't some masked stranger in the shadows. It was one of her biggest donators. This man spent over $70,000 on her streams, a man who pretended to be some tech CEO. And the streamer's name is Yoon Ji-ah. And I really don't enjoy covering stories like this, but I think they do matter, especially for anyone who lives their life online or makes their money there. So Yoon, she was 27 years old. She was a growing influencer, a live streamer, and even an actress with big dreams. She streamed on TikTok and other platforms, building a loyal audience. And as of October 2nd, her last post included the announcement of her passing. Because on September 11th, 2025, she finished what could have been a normal stream from Yeongjeon Island. She logged off, probably thinking about her future collab streams or dinner plans, but within 30 minutes, she was attacked. Hours later, her body was found on a remote mountainside in Muju County. Police say that she was strangled, and I saw the Sun-covered images of where her body was found, and I'm really not comfortable showing those here. But sadly, they're out there on the internet. Just know, it was very obvious someone tried to hide her. The guy who did it, his name is Choi. He's a man in his 50s. Online, he called himself Black Cat. And Black Cat wasn't just any fan, he was a VIP. This is a guy who would drop eye-watering amounts of donations during streams. The guy who popped up over and over again. He spent over 100 million won, which is roughly $70,000. He told everyone he was a wealthy CEO of an IT company. You know, the classic like, hey, look, I'm this pompous big guy. But in reality, he was nothing. The dude was buried in debt. His house had literally been seized in a forced auction the day the incident happened. And I really do not think that's a coincidence. It sounds more like a trigger that set him off. I mean, just from looking at the story, it's obvious he was not living a good life. He was completely living a lie. But like many people with fragile egos, and I guess way too much time on their hands, he built this whole fake identity and persona and threw money at someone to feel powerful. And eventually, Choi managed to do what a lot of these big spenders try to do: blur the lines between being a fan and someone who is directly involved with their life. He promised Yoon that he could grow her audience, get her sponsorships, boost her career, and just work together. That's what he wanted. He sold himself as a guy with connections to her. And unfortunately, when you're a young creator trying to build something, that could sound like a good deal. So Yoon went along with it for a while. But apparently, Choi wasn't just invested financially. He was possessive and started demanding more and more of her. Basically, this creep started acting like a partner that Yoon never agreed to have. And eventually, Yoon had enough. She decided to cut ties. And this is where things got terrifying. Because I guess when someone like Choi feels the control slipping away, it doesn't end with a quiet unfollow. CCTV footage from that day shows him kneeling in front of her, literally begging her to stay in their partnership. And that is when the moment happened. Because at 3:24 p.m., Yoon tries to get out of the car, but she doesn't make it out. Choi grabs her, drags her back inside, and slams the door shut. And unfortunately, this is the last time she's seen alive. And then according to the eventual confession, Choi ended Yoon's life shortly after that. He then shoved her into a suitcase. So please put this guy under the prison. He then drove out to the mountains to dump her, and apparently the guy thought he was some sort of like criminal mastermind, because on the way there, he stopped 8 separate times to, I guess, throw off investigators. Because, you know, there's nothing like saying, hey, I'm a criminal genius, like leaving a GPS breadcrumb trail across half the country and begging on your knees right before the crime actually happened. I'll call it what it is. It's pathetic, cruel, and just plain stupid. This guy is literally a Hall of Fame moron, and her body was discovered later that day. She was gone less than an hour after her final stream. So essentially, she was doing what she loved to do up until the moment someone stole everything from her. The world is just honestly, it's just so sick and twisted. This just sucks. Choi was arrested 12 hours after the body was found. He tried to play innocent at first. The whole like, oh, I don't know what happened. And then when they found the body, everything cracked. He admitted everything then. Essentially, the whole fake CEO confidence completely vanished in about 2 seconds. And this is probably because it never existed in the first place. This guy was in deep financial ruin, and he tried to, I guess, make himself feel important through donations. And when Yoon cut him off, the fantasy just completely collapsed, and he lashed out violently. This is textbook parasocial obsession. These aren't healthy, oh, I support your content vibes. This is, I bought a version of you that only exists in my head, and then I'll punish you if you step out of of what I imagined you being like. Like, this is so messed up. And when the news broke, South Korea was furious. Creators started sharing their own stories of obsessive fans. Big streamers, one by one, started being very worried about how they would conduct themselves in public. For example, QTC Cinderella and Valkyrie even pulled out of TwitchCon 2025, saying the case terrified them. And I see why they would be scared, especially if you're a female streamer, because this isn't a one-off thing. There's tons of nut jobs out there. And for some reason, it just seems to be so much worse for the female streamers, because you have fans that convince themselves that they have personal relationships with someone who doesn't even know their full name. I mean, it was just earlier this year that we covered a guy who was completely convinced that he was married to Pokimane. Like, imagine the dude decided to literally go homeless and move to the same city as Pokimane because he thought he was married to her. That is horrifying.
Me and Pokimane has been dating for 4 months now. Today is our 4-month anniversary. Guys, she is not single. She is taken. I know she likes to keep up her image saying that she's single and everything, but I am in a relationship with her. We're going to be meeting up soon, and we're engaged, guys. We're engaged. That's why we definitely have to discuss things. We'll be getting married soon, very soon, and we will definitely stream it and let you guys know when it's happening and everything.
You absolutely do not want a person like that anywhere near that streamer, because clearly these guys don't even see these women as people. They're just fantasy material that they've made up in their own head. They might start with donations, but then apparently they push for contact and then control. And when reality doesn't match the fantasy they've built, apparently things get violent. And we saw this also in Japan, as I mentioned earlier. You had Ari Sato, a 22-year-old YouTuber. She had her life ended while live streaming on the street in Tokyo. It's just so disgusting that this is happening somewhat regularly now. Because in this case, she was walking alone streaming on Who Watch. Then a man approached her who I guess had lent her money, tracked her down through her stream, and then attacked her in broad daylight. Viewers heard her scream before the feed cut out. And the suspect, Kenji Takano, had followed her online for years. He literally hopped on a train from Oyama to Shinjuku just to do this. And the reason was a financial dispute. He'd given her money when he expected something in return. When he didn't get it, he chose violence. And I'm really interested in what the specific details on this was, because I severely doubt a streamer would just randomly loan money from a viewer. But unfortunately, this sounds pretty similar to what happened to Yoon now. And it's sad because every year more creators builds huge audiences, and every year there's another obsessed fan who convinces themselves that money equals ownership. And when the reality just doesn't match up with their fantasy, they explode. And this is just entitlement masked as support. And what really makes it worse is how this happens slowly. Yoon probably didn't look at Choi and think, oh, this guy is dangerous. But then slowly but surely, he became extremely dangerous. Because the dude was donating huge sums. He promised her business opportunities, he was flattering, and slowly those things just turned into complete control. And here's the heartbreaking part. Yoon knew something was wrong. Her family said that she expressed fear about his behavior in days leading up to the event. And unfortunately, when she tried to walk away, he chose to just end her life. On paper, Choi probably looked like the kind of success story that these platforms love to glorify. He seemed to be this big spender and big supporter, but behind the scenes, this guy was clearly living in financial ruin. And what's also extremely shocking about this guy seemingly donated so much money that he ended up losing his house. And I think his actions against her was just that total result of his entire fake identity collapsing, and he'd rather just destroy everything than face that. But obviously, there's this one detail to the case that really stuck with a lot of people, and that's the suitcase. Because the suitcase alone gives room to argue that this was definitely premeditated. He begged for her to stay, she said no, and he had already prepared for what to do if she said no. And from everything I see online, Yoon's death sent a shockwave through Korea's streaming world. Creators started hiring extra security, tightening their boundaries, and rethinking meetups and business deals. It's just a massive tragedy, because the reality is Yoon should have still been alive. And I know some people will say, well, she should have known. But I don't think she should have, honestly. Like, let's be clear, like, she didn't owe him anything. She didn't have to play therapist to someone who lied about everything and was clearly a complete wreck of a person. This is not her fault. Obviously, she could have been more careful, but this is still not her fault. It's just sad. I mean, the uncomfortable truth is if someone's dropping tens of thousands of dollars on a creator they've never met, there's a non-zero chance that person is not doing great mentally. Because this big spender who thought he was untouchable, the guy who spent $70,000 trying to be important, all it took was 12 hours for police to find him and his life to be over forever. And honestly, what a pathetic legacy to leave as a man. Rest in peace, Yoon.